Jason now calling in from Pennsylvania. Jason, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? First of all, Scott, you have an awesome haircut. Not that anyone else doesn't look awesome out there, but I love the haircut.
Thank you.
I'm a musician, out of work musician right now from Pennsylvania, and I am a former Jehovah's Witness. And so I survived that experience, and I think it has a lot of relevance to what's happening now, actually, with Trump. And I wanted to, if I could, talk about something I've been thinking about lately, about how I converted at 16 to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, explain that connection to me with your Jehovah's Witness experiences, and now I'd be curious to know what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, basically, I've seen the inside of how cults operate. The Jehovah's Witnesses are most definitely a cult. And, you know, for instance, when someone points out something wrong about the Jehovah's Witnesses, like there was a Dateline special about covering up child abuse, for instance. Not only did they tell us not to watch it, they essentially called it fake news. Anything that you could say against the Jehovah's Witness organization, they could turn around to actually show that it was true, or they would discredit it. And I was also participating in that. I had a position in the organization, a small one, but I actually perpetuated that stuff because I believed it.
Yeah.
So what I see now, and please cut me off if I become very verbose at times. I don't want to distract or whatever, so feel free to cut me off. But what I see right now is something very similar. I see fake news. I see when Trump does something wrong, it's actually right. Everything gets turned around. The way that I see the current state of affairs is that essentially, you know, around 30 or more % of the country is involved in a cult. And I know that sounds extreme.
No, man, I'm with you 100%, dude. I am 100% with you. Just know that you are not alone in that. It's not a big majority of people. It's just a small amount, but they vote a lot.
Yeah. And Jason, I'll say this.
I agree with you.
Yeah, you know, if you watch the show, you know I've had a couple of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses guests on this show. Like they'll say the same thing. Sure. They say it's a cult, you know, and they talk about the
no, not about Jehovah's Witness. That what's going on politically is exactly the same. And it's only a small percentage, 30% of the population. I'm not talking about Jehovah's Witness. I'm talking about what's happening politically.
Sure. But I'm just reifying what Jason is saying here about seeing those connections, because because as someone who used to be a Christian evangelist myself, I see how I was keeping up with the system that I didn't even realize the part I was playing in it, right? I didn't realize I was simultaneously contributing to the homophobia in this country. I was also contributing to just all the bad ideas that come with that colonialism at some part. Yeah. I went on a mission trip to a Native American reservation, and that's one of the most embarrassing things I think I've ever done in retrospect, because of just the implications of that, you know, dissecting what that even is. But I didn't think about it that way at the time. That wasn't like, I didn't actively think I was harming people. I really thought I was doing good. And I think you could probably speak to this too, Jason. I think the people who are on the inside, really, a lot of them do think that they're doing good. And that's what's hard when talking about this, right? Because if you think you're doing good and someone's trying to convince you you're not, like that's a tough conversation.
I would agree. I've been to Guyana, and I've also fixed roofs after hurricanes. I've done all this stuff that felt like it was good, but it was kind of exploitative, you know. There was. I mean, you didn't realize it at the time. And by the way, these Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of these people are some of the sweetest, most wonderful people, just like anybody else. Unfortunately, they're sucked into this cult. Now, no doubt there are some people at the top that are culpable of really manipulating this, but they're some of them. They're some of the best people that I've known, and now they will never talk to me again because I'm an apostate for them. But if I could, there was a lot of emotional reasons as a kid why I ended up becoming part of it. But if I could just highlight one thing about something I was thinking about recently, about why I converted, why I started believing this truth in a sense. And part of it was because they were proving other people wrong. Okay, so for instance, nobody would believe that God's name was Jehovah. You could ask people, they'd be like, I mean, back then anyway, before the internet, they'd be like, no, that's not God's name. God's name is God or the Lord. And, you know, maybe a Jewish person wouldn't say what it is. I don't know. But then you would look at Psalms 83:18 in the King James and you'd see the word Jehovah and you'd be like, fuck, those people were wrong.
Yeah.
And that hardens you and it gets you into the religion. So that's one example. And that's obviously not a solid foundation on which to base your epistemology about something that is going to ruin your life for a while.
Absolutely. And the thing about with Jehovah's Witnesses in general is it's because it's so modern in the context of a lot of other religious traditions. You can really point to the specific ideas of how they're wrong with a lot more evidence and a lot more accuracy than you can when talking about things that are much older, where the sources are hard to find and harder to interpret and require experts and study and stuff. Like with Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're talking about like the dates where they predicted the end of the world, that happened like a couple times when they did that. It's like you can keep pointing to all that and like, but that's still not stopping people from believing this, and either because they don't know that or they have some sort of explanation to, you know, explain that away. And it's just like what Scott was saying, we're kind of in a post-truth world, although I think it's kind of always been that way, but it's more that way now. I think more that way now.
Well, the post-truth people, this is the difference, is the post-truth people and the people who have agendas, they're having outsized influence that they used to never have, not just because of a president, because of the platforms largely, because, you know, like really, like, fuck it, let's call it Facebook and Google and fucking Twitter, those Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, those 4 major platforms have done a shitty job of trying to work with post-truth because they fucking make billions and billions of dollars off of it. It's not a conspiracy. It's not my opinion about it. That's what they do. That's the whole thing. If you look up you know, a cooking recipe on Facebook, I can do it anytime. Next thing is like a vegetarian option. Next thing is a vegan option. Next thing is animal rights. Next thing is animal liberation. It goes down the thing. You can see the algorithms that are doing it, and they don't have any motivation to stop it. And it's not a conspiracy, and I'm not even trying to make them stop it. It's just fucked it all up. And you know, like as far as like Jehovah's Witness is like shooting fish in a barrel as far as I'm concerned. And then I mentioned I'm a gun owner too. I'm not a liberal left guy. Like I don't have guns and stuff, but I also don't keep guns around me or on me. And I'm not going to fucking shoot people for private property. But all like, if I come at it with an empathetic voice and an empathetic way, I just understand that people are trying to make sense of a complex world as best as they can. And there's some people who try to profit from that and do profit, you know, like largely it's the platforms, but there's also people, influencers and priests and preachers and stuff who also and have vested dollar interest in that. But most people are just trying to understand themselves and the world around them. And largely religion has been the containers for that, and secular ideas have been difficult because many of the, especially the late 20th century and early 21st century ideas have taken on complexity as part of the idea. And that fucking is hard for most people to do because they either got to work and go to school and take care of their families and do things. And so religion and fucking ideas like conspiracies are shortcuts to just get to that. So like, oh, I understand the world now. And you get to hold a special piece of information. You got a special badge that you get to wear, you know? And so I can look at it cynically and be mad at those people and go like, fucking this and that or whatever. Not the people who are manipulating, but the people who just actually believe it. Or I can take an approach where I understand that that is your truth and it's a harmful truth to you, but I'm going to let you go through it because that's all I can do.
Great insight there, Scott. It's sad because again, you have empathy, but you also realize the beliefs are harmful at the end of the day. So you can't, for me, it's like, I can't just sit around and not talk about that. I can't just sit around and just let that happen.
That's right.
Because that harms people and that's going to have an effect. So yeah, it's why I try to speak out about this stuff. It's why I have a show like this. So Jason, we're coming to the end of the show here, but thanks so much for calling in about your experiences and stuff, and thanks for watching Truth One.
You well, man.
Yeah, sounds great.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for what you're doing.